dubitare spini santi, su dove sanno cantare mi senti. Non canto né p'amore né p'amanti, perché manco mi passi per la mente, ciuri, ciuri, ciuri di tutto l'anno, l'amore che mi rasti ti lo torno, ciuri, ciuri, ciuri di tutto l'anno, l'amore che mi rasti ti lo torno. Ma quando vi la
Hey everybody, I'm Joe the Monk, Joe the Gourmet Monk today. Today is September 6th, 2014, and I'm staying with the Chans in Hayward, California, and they've asked me to put together a very traditional dish that I inherited from my Sicilian grandmother, rest her soul. She would have been 102 years old had she been with us, but anyway, as a kid growing up with her, she always cooked in our house, and I sat by her and watched, and she taught me how to make two or three of her dishes very well, and eggplant Parmesan is one that I like to think I'm okay with. So Ron and his family and I went shopping yesterday, and we got the ingredients for a really good eggplant, Sicilian eggplant Parmesan. And before I go into specifics about ingredients, it's really important that you understand everything just has to be fresh. That's half the battle. And so, of course, we have eggplant. We bought 6 nice, good-sized eggplants. I don't want to tilt this because I have these soaking in salt water to keep them fresh, to keep them from turning color. And what I did was slice up these 6 eggplants, and I have a preference for cutting these to be about 1/4 to 1/2 inch, right? Like this. It's much nicer, comes up much nicer after it's cooked. I know some places like to slice paper thin, and you get something that, for me, is just different. This is real eggplant Parmesan. So you get fresh eggplants. You cut them, a nice thickness. You don't have to slice off or peel the skin, but you can if you want to put that time in. But it'll set you back another hour, with a potato peeler trying to get the skin off. It isn't necessary. It doesn't affect the taste one way or another, and it'll save you time. So you have the eggplant. Get that. Spend the money on that. If it's organically grown and it costs a few more bucks, it's well worth it. It does make a huge difference. The other one that's really important, since it's Parmesan, you have to get fresh mozzarella. You have to get fresh cheese to cook with. And what works really nice, if you can get it, there are these balls of mozzarella in brine. Okay, they're always really fresh. If you can get true buffalo mozzarella, which is made from buffalo milk, that's even better, but you got to go to a gourmet shop for that. But this is mozzarella fresca, and they're tiny little bite-sized pieces that I'll cut up and put between the layers of eggplant and on the top. And when we bake later on, I'll talk more about the processes, but when it's baked, it should melt up very nicely and evenly. So fresh mozzarella. Also, spend a little money on Parmesan because this is pretty hard, and what you'll do is you'll grate this up, right? And you'll sprinkle this over the top of everything, and this will melt together very nicely with the mozzarella. This is aged 10 months, they say. So this is just a deli Parmesan cheese, but if you really want to splurge and get a good Parmesan, or a good cheese to put on top of this. Pecorino Romano is really nice. I think it's goat cheese actually, but that's got a nice strong pungent odor, and that's nice. But any Parmesan will do for the top. And finally, as ingredients go, the sauce has to be almost handmade. The sauce should almost be handmade. I cheated a little bit here, I have to confess. I got, to start, as a base, I use this Bertolli sauce in the jar. This says olive oil and garlic. You want to stay with the marinara sauce. Don't get a meat sauce for this. A couple of advantages for that. I just like the taste of garlic and olive oil, plus this remains a vegan dish if there's no meat in the sauce. And that might be important to some people. So I start off the sauce with a jar of this, just one jar, and I then work with fresh ingredients, homegrown, handmade. I know these came from a can, but these are nice plum tomatoes that are peeled already, and what I did with them, what I think everybody should do with all their tomatoes, is push them through a sieve, just with your bare hands, okay? Put your canned plum tomatoes in here, you push it through a sieve into any container of any sort that holds it, and you can get the seeds out that way, because the little seeds create a bitter taste in the sauce. So you want to try and get rid of those as much as possible, and that's how I do it. So fresh tomatoes of different types. These are tomatoes from my good friend Ron's garden, and he's really got some nice homemade, homegrown tomatoes, but the basis of it are these Roma tomatoes. Right? They have a really nice flavor, nice taste, and they have very little seeds. It's mostly meat, you know, from the tomato, and it has just a really good taste, and you spend a lot less time trying to push this through the sieve to get the seeds out. Since he's got a variety of different tomatoes, I'm going to put a regular tomato in, and these very tasty cherry tomatoes. So we start with a base like this. I don't know if you can see that. I don't want to lose any of it on the countertop, but we start out with a base like this. Then I'm going to chop up the tomatoes, push them through the sieve, get the seeds out, and I'm going to saute them with some of this nice fresh chopped garlic. Okay, that's important. Get fresh garlic. Don't use garlic salt, please. Okay, it adds a lot of sodium to it, and it just doesn't taste good. And you got to have fresh garlic. So that's another important ingredient. And also in the sauce, as you're sauteing all your ingredients, the tomatoes, the garlic, you can put some onions if you want, but we're going to pass on that. And I've got this really nice fresh basil also from Ron's garden. Okay, this really nice, it's really fragrant, this nice flowering basil. And so we're going to, I may break this up a little bit. You don't have to crush it, but if you have a mortar and pestle, it's good to crush it a little bit, or at least break the leaves so the flavor comes out. You throw these in at the end of the saute with all the sauce, so you don't want to cook them down to mush. You want to maintain the form of the leaf and leave a little crispiness in there, because it's a nice sensation when you're eating the sauce and you get a nice crispy little leaf of basil in there. That's really nice. And set aside, probably make more of this sauce than you need for the eggplant, because the stuff is just great on linguine or any kind of other pasta. So, did I remember all the, let's see, oh, we have to, we need a nice extra virgin olive oil, but mostly we're going to be using it for sauteing. So don't go overboard and spend $20 or $30 on gourmet olive oil. Get the store brand, is fine, you know, for sauteing, but make sure it's olive oil, just a decent olive oil, because it lends a nice taste to it. Any other kind of vegetable oil or any other frying oil, it just doesn't do quite the same thing that olive oil does. Okay? And of course, you have to have a good amount of Italian-style breadcrumbs to bread the, what we'll do is we'll take the fresh, you know, each one of these, one at a time, we dip it in a beaten egg or two. Just start with 2 and don't overdo it. And then if you need more egg, you put it in. You dip it in the egg, you cover it with the breadcrumb, and then repeat the process. So this has a nice layer of crust on it. Okay, ingredients. I think we're done there. We just need a nice a glass or a metal pan like this for baking everything in. And after I do some more prep work, once I get the tomatoes cut up and strained, we'll come back on camera then, and I'll show you how the sauce works. And then we'll start with the, we'll start breading and, you know, dipping the eggplant in eggs and then breading them. We lay them down in the pan after they've got a nice crispy little golden brown crust on them. I'll show that to you. We lay them down in the pan. We put them down first, a layer of sauce, a layer of sliced mozzarella, and then repeat until the pan's full and you've used up all the eggplant. And as you can tell by the amount of eggplant we've cut up, it looks like we did, we cut up 6 really good sized eggplants, so we're going to be eating this stuff for a while, which is not a bad thing. So ingredients. When we come back, I'll have done a little more prep work, and we'll continue. Thank you. Hey everybody, Joe the Gourmet Monk, back again with chapter 2. We're going to chop some ingredients. I've already pretty much completed the garlic, and you need to chop it about like that. It should be chunky, not fine, mashed. Just take your time and, chop this into pieces like about this big, okay? That'll be enough, and as you will do with every ingredient just about, right? You're going to take it off and put it in a container and set it off to the side of the stove, and you'll be ready once the heat's up in the pan, in the frying pan, okay? And the garlic is hot enough so that this will sizzle or bubble a little bit when you drop it in. And I'm also going to cut up the, take your time to do this too, cut up the Roma tomatoes. See how nice those are? Hardly any seeds at all. And you're going to have to get another container, and you're going to have to take the time to do this. Well, I mean, if you're going to make this dish, you got to just resign yourself to spending the better part of a day on it. It's not a quick meal. It's not one of those, I don't forget the name of the cook that does those meals in half an hour, but this is not what that is. You really got to sit down and take the time. And what you'll put in the sauce basically is, a piece of tomato like that. And we'll do that with each little slice. So, give some thought to this before you sit down. Make sure all the ingredients are within arm's length, right? So you can have everything you need. You've got all the utensils, just at your fingertips here, so that you don't have to run around the kitchen, right? There's a lot of kind of, I guess, time and motion analysis here that you should probably think about before you start making this. And I don't know, I wish I had photos or some footage of my little grandmother, who was about this tall maybe, and she was always bent over the kitchen counter, and I always remember seeing her from the back. I hardly ever saw her face. This little old Italian woman always wore the same black dress, it seemed, and she would spend hours prepping this stuff, and she always had ingredients to cook any kind of Italian dish you could imagine. So what we do every Sunday, we would, kind of like I'm doing here, my grandmother would start at 9 a.m. down in her basement. She wouldn't touch her nice renovated kitchen, but down in her basement on a beat up old stove, gas stove, she'd start cooking every dish you could possibly think of, veal cutlet she used to make back then. I don't know where but veal was actually cheap back in those days. She'd make that. She'd make handmade pasta, just without a machine, completely by hand. And so all these dishes would just kind of magically appear, come up from the basement and end up on her table. We'd start eating at about 1 p.m. and continue until 8, soup to nuts. And what also was nice was that all of her sisters, I think she had 5 or 6 sisters, they did the same thing in their basements, and they brought the food over in a box, and we ate such wonderful food. One exception, I had this one Aunt Teresa who, her sauce tasted okay, her red sauce, but for some reason, I don't know why it was, it gave us all the trots, and we couldn't, we had to figure out polite ways to avoid it because she'd get offended, and whenever her plate of her meatballs would go by with that sauce, we just pass it on, and she started asking, why you don't like my sauce? You eat that, it's a very nice, but we all had to avoid it because it gave us the runs, How do you say that nicely? I never learned how to say that in Italian. Anyway, she was the only, negative point in the whole day. But otherwise, we'd eat it's amazing. We feasted for 7 hours, literally. Whenever I'm preparing these dishes like this, and I'm getting it now, I get these odors, and I start tasting these tastes actually in the back of my mouth, and to make a pretentious French literary allusion. It's kind of a Proustian moment. Marcel Proust was the guy that wrote In Remembrance of Things Past, or In Search of a Lost Time, and his thing was going to his neighbor's estate to have tea and these little cakes, and he'd eat the cake and take a teaspoon or a little sip of tea, and it brought him back to his childhood. And for the next 400 pages of this novel, he talked about his childhood, and if it sounds like a bit of a snore fest, try it. It's actually a very good read, and he does a wonderful thing talking about memory and tastes and odors and things like that. And so I'm sure all of you have experienced, you go by a bakery and you catch a whiff of something that, from your childhood, and somewhere in your subconscious memory is everything that happened to you all your life. And these are sort of like memory triggers. And I get these whenever I'm making this dish, and I just have vivid, very, very nice memories, vivid memories of my childhood in Trenton, New Jersey, if you can believe that. So it really wasn't such a bad place. I do prefer Southern California, but if you want to get good, authentic, homemade Italian food, good pizza, for example, tomato pies they call it, New Jersey's the place to go. I still have to say that. But anyway, continuing with what I'm doing here, I'm just about done prepping the tomatoes, squeezing the seeds out to make the base of the sauce. And I'm going to start, sauteing these things, and I'll put it in the big pot that you saw. It's over there on the stove. But when I get back with you, I'll be sauteing these things up, preparing the sauce, and we'll have a little shot of us showing you how to prepare the eggplant too. We dip it in egg, we dip it in breadcrumbs, and then repeat the process. So I got everything right here ready to go, and let's continue. Well, you may have noticed that the lights here have been a little dimmed, and the producer, Ron Chan, asked me if I would do that because the light's reflecting off my bald head, my shaved head, and maybe causing a little distraction for you viewers. But I wanted to do that. I mean, I've done this, I've shaved my head because I'm a Buddhist monk and have been for 5 years. And you might be wondering, how do you become a Buddhist monk? What brings you to that? It certainly was not a direct path. This is my fourth, I don't want to use the word reincarnation, but this is my fourth cycle of reinvention, if you will. And I started out in life as a telecom executive. That's how I got to know Ron. And I worked for a number of different telecom firms in the United States and Asia and Europe, and had a really nice, it was a very nice, interesting life. But that ended for me in 2001, and I got into real estate during the big boom in Southern California. Was a huge boom at that time, so I rode that wave for a little while, and had basically, I had kind of outrun its usefulness in my life, and it was a really, I don't want to go into much detail on it. It was just the kind of business that after a while you'd had enough of it, and I moved on and became an English teacher. And I moved to Hanoi in Vietnam, and for almost 2 years I taught at an Australian university, English of course, but I also taught courses in fundamental business foundation courses, marketing, management, stuff like that. And so I did that for almost 2 years, and fascinating place to, just in a culture that's developing like that, and to come from a very highly, at least economically advanced society. The juxtaposition was kind of interesting in my mind. And that's what I've always found fascinating, is being kind of parachuting into an environment or a place that's very different from the one I came from. So I did that for a couple of years, and I was there alone. My family was back in California. We maintained residences back in California, and it came to a point where, okay, the Hanoi thing was coming to an end, my contract was over, and I thought, how to come back to the United States, but have a life with some meaning in it. And I spoke to my now ex-wife and said, hey, look, the temple that we went to for a long time in a place called Bonsall, California, 25 miles north of San Diego, I knew the abbot from a long time ago. I had taught English there, and I had helped them out with different things during their founding phase. And I said, would he ordain me as a monk? Let me explore that avenue. And it worked out. He agreed to ordain me. He believed I had something to bring to the temple. And fundamentally what it was, he wanted an American monk there. They really wanted a Western face among their, all Asian group there. So I was at the time, and I'm still, the only non-Vietnamese, American monk for whom English is the first language. And so I help them out with a lot of language things, translating things. I teach some English to them too. I'm the private tutor there, but I also teach meditation classes and give Dharma talks a couple times a month. And so life is a bit austere, but meaningful, simple and meaningful. And I really appreciate the effort of being able to get these nice ingredients together and cook for other people. And that's one of the big things about Buddhism is we take an altruistic approach to things, and preparing a meal for someone else has deep significance in our practice. So this is a form of meditation, actually, is preparing food and taking great care with the ingredients, you know, being very meticulous about, you know, how you cut, and just even preparing these tomatoes and getting all the little seeds out, you know, so all you get is the flavor of the tomato. Preparing the eggplant, you know, and covering it with egg and breadcrumbs. It's all a labor of love, first of all, but we have to take great care, you know, because we're really having a form of meditation, and you can see that, you know, that level of attention in the final product, and you'll see that when it's done. Too bad there's no way you could smell it, but you'll see the meticulous attention to detail when we're finally done. So let me get to the sauce. I'll start preparing the ingredients for that, and we'll join you again when that's in progress. Hey, so we're back with the final stage of prep for making our eggplant Parmesan. And what happens here is basically we take a piece of eggplant. My assistant Lucy here is actually going to do this. I'm just going to explain it real quick. Lucy is going to be dipping this in the egg, cover both sides of the eggplant real well, and then in a flat dish like this, okay, lay down a nice thin layer of breadcrumb, and I prefer this is just a brand I prefer, but you're welcome to use what you want, but these Progresso Italian style breadcrumbs really do it for me. They have a real nice, there's dried basil and oregano in there, and just finely ground breadcrumbs, and it does the job real well. Okay, so we cover it with a layer of breadcrumb and then repeat the process, and what we have is a very nice layer that will be then sauteed in the frying pan, and we'll go to that phase next. After it comes out of the frying pan, we'll lay it on a plate. It'll be nicely browned, and you don't have to cook it too much, because you'll start cooking. The cooking process itself begins in the frying pan when you're sauteing the breaded piece of eggplant, and then so you're really just cooking it partially there. It's all in the prep work, really. So when this is properly done and finished, we layer these into a pan like this. Okay, it can be glass, it could be metal lined with. I like to put a little bit of aluminum foil if you're using a metal one, because you don't get the taste of the pan in there. You don't want that. So we got a layer of aluminum foil. We put a layer of sauteed eggplant, and then we cut a piece of mozzarella and layer that on top, and we just keep repeating that over and over again. And let's not forget too, we're also going to have our nice sauce that we made with these fresh tomatoes, okay, with the base. But these fresh garden tomatoes that just came from Ron's backyard are going to be the basis. It's going to be the most prominent taste in the red sauce, and so we're going to be layering that in there too, along with the eggplant and this nice mozzarella cheese. And when we're done, thank you, Lucy. Thank you. When we're finally done with all the layering, we'll grate up this nice Parmesan cheese and put a layer of that on the very top. So when it's baked, everything melts together really nicely. You've got a very nice handmade, homemade dish of a traditional Sicilian eggplant Parmesan, and that's all there is to it so far. So why don't you just, maybe you can quickly take a crack at doing what I just explained, if that's possible. So use the foil. Just drop it in the egg, that's all. And see if you can, yeah, that's all. Drop it in, yeah, get it off the fork, there you go. And then, yeah. And now do the same thing with the breadcrumb. Yeah, you can touch it with your finger to get it off the fork. That's all right, it's going to be cooked. Yeah, see? Okay. Yeah, that's good. Cover it over with the, if you're using a spoon, you can get a spoon and do that, or she's doing a nice job with a fork, no problem. Okay. Yeah, great. And you'll find that by the time you're done, most of this will be gone. Because yeah, it requires a lot. And we got many eggplant slices in there. There you go. And then, yeah, flip it over one more time in the egg. and you get a nice, here, and what I'll do, yeah, keep going, just do that. See what you need to do, shake that and create a nice even layer of breadcrumb. And then she does it one more time. Yeah, that's good. That'll even out when you do the breading. Yeah, don't you hesitate to touch the eggplant with your hands. It's all right as long as you wash your hands are clean. That's fine, don't worry. There you go. Look how nice that is. See how nice and even that is? Yeah. And the other side should be nice too. That's good. You don't have to do anything more than that. See how nice that is? So that's great. Okay, so you put that in there like that. I mean, this will be sautéed, browned, and everything. And then what you'll do is you can actually cut this with a fork right on the. Yeah, if this is clean, go ahead. Cut a slice of that any way you want. Yeah. Use the fork there like that.
Shred it.
Yeah, see how nice that breaks up almost. You could do that with your hand almost. Yeah. And then you put that. Yeah, you just put enough of that. Actually, you could put one.
One more?
Yeah, put one more on there, and if we have enough basil, I'm going to go back out in the yard and check. But it's almost like a caprese salad, right? We put a leaf of a basil leaf on top of that too. That'll be nice. That'll bake up real nice. So we put the layer of sauce on. We'll do that, and you'll see that shortly. And we keep doing this and layer it until the pan's filled, and then bake for 20 minutes. Nice job, Lucy. Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Good.
Veni la primavera, li mennuli sunciuri, per duvo fa l'amori, solo con mia da fa. Si marita rosa, sarida e pipinetta, e io casugno betta.
Okay, so to summarize this process once again, we get a piece of eggplant. All right, we've got a little shallow beat egg here, two eggs beaten. Okay, and I turn it over in the egg and just get a nice covering of egg on there. Drop this piece, okay, on our breadcrumb, on our layer of breadcrumb. Flip it over once and, cover it so it's even. It's nice and even. Don't get too concerned about that though, because it's the first of 2 layers. We get another coating, one more pass on the egg dip, and into the breadcrumb. And this will cover nice and evenly because we've already got a nice layer of egg and breadcrumb. We're on the second pass, and you'll see how nicely this covers. You want to try and even out just shake the plate, and you can see we got so much eggplant, and you get an idea of how time consuming this part is, but it's got to be done. So there you are, and there you have a nice piece of eggplant ready to be sauteed, and we saute that fairly quickly. We don't want to overcook it at this point and burn it actually, so it should be a nice golden brown. Once that's done, into the baking pan, we put a nice layer of fresh mozzarella. And again, this is fresh mozzarella in the brine, right? We get these little balls, and we can put a layer of mozzarella there like that, really nicely. And then we'll put a layer of sauce. That'll be completed. And what I want to do on the last layer, on the very top layer, is put a fresh basil leaf on there. And then it bakes for 20 minutes. And there you have it. And so when it's starting to bubble and all the cheeses are melted together, oh, and let's not forget our Parmesan. We're going to grate this, and we'll put sprinkle a nice layer of Parmesan over the eggplant too. And all these nice flavors melt together. So when it's bubbling, you take it out of the oven, and if you want to serve it piping hot, that's good. The nice thing about this is that you can freeze it. It thaws very easily and very nicely. Or don't even have to freeze it. Put it in the fridge, and if you're going to use it the next day, the flavors will all be nice and mingled together, and it's actually even better after the second day, I think. And then you can just heat it up in the oven. Don't microwave it. First of all, it's a metal pan, so you can't use the microwave. But if you got a glass, if you use a glass, baking dish, I strongly suggest against microwaving it. Heat it up in the oven nicely until you see that nice bubbling action going on with the cheese, and it's ready to go again. Okay, here we are now at the phase of we're preparing the sauce now, and this is important. I've got the, as you can see, I've got the base ready. This is the stuff from the jar, and I've also got strained Roma tomatoes through here too. So they're from the can. You can use, those are fine, those are perfectly fine, but again, the seeds are strained out. We want to avoid the bitterness. I've got some nice garlic here, which I'm going to saute first. That has a little longer time to cook. So we're going to start with that. Get a nice, you want a nice amount of garlic in there because you can see how much sauce we're preparing. And so it won't overpower the taste of the tomatoes as much garlic as this is. We just want to get it sauteed really nice. Get that going. Okay. And so I'll be, of course we use extra virgin olive oil. That's what we use for everything. And again, it doesn't have to be a $20 bottle of olive oil. You can just get the store brand. Make sure you got enough. Make sure that the garlic's done up nice. Saute that. You don't want to burn it. Just brown it real nice. Brings the flavor of the garlic out much better. Okay. And then just pour all the, let's get a little more olive oil in there. It's starting to dry up. And don't be alarmed by, the amount of oil that I'm using. It's going to get, and it'll just be a nice complement to the sauce. It actually adds a nice flavor. And then just all the tomatoes now. This is really the most important. These are fresh tomatoes, and I'm really fortunate to be able to use these. Let's get a bigger spoon for this. Alright, so I'm going to just saute these and soften them up. And this may take a little while, so just get it to a point where the tomatoes are kind of mushy actually. And you'll be surprised what a difference this makes in your sauce. And you can even put in more of the base that I explained earlier. Just get the jar and put more in, but this is going to be really the taste foundation as far as that goes. So give me a chance, give me some time to do this. And when we come back, I'll show you the sauce, and we'll get the we'll start frying the eggplant up. Yeah. So as you can see now, the tomatoes have had a chance to simmer real nice, and it's been broken down into almost complete liquid, which is what we want to do. If you have time and you want to take out these these skins, you can do that. Again, time consuming, so it's not really necessary, but what we have now is a really nice base. We have a lot of garlic, a lot of basil, and these wonderful fresh tomatoes. So I'm going to put it in here with the with the stuff from the jar, and again, this is Bertolli, olive oil and garlic. And so again, we're keeping in the vegan, we're being consistent with the vegan, aspect of this dish. There's no meat in any part of it. So if you're a strict vegetarian or vegan, this should work for you. So here I am just getting that in. We'll have plenty of sauce for our needs and maybe some left over. And then I'm just going to, let's turn the heat off here. Okay, and we're adding this now to the jar stuff, but all together we should have something that tastes really good and complements the eggplant very nicely. All right, and so there we are with the sauce, complete. So here is our sauce. This is the foundation of one of the foundations of the eggplant Parmesan that we're making, and I've got it complete now. All the ingredients are in this pot. And we're going to let it simmer on low heat for a good half hour to 45 minutes. so that all the flavors mix together really nicely, and that just goes poured over our eggplant. But we've got the Bertolli. Bertolli is the nice brand. I think it's a good brand of sauce in a jar, but that's only about 40% of what's in the pot. The other 60% is fresh garden-grown tomatoes that were picked this morning, and I think it makes all the difference in the world. Fresh tomatoes, fresh hand-picked basil as well, pretty fresh garlic that was chopped up, a little bit of oregano from the the McCormick spice rack, and we just let this simmer, and that's it. It's not super difficult to make. Again, just time consuming. Be prepared to put in the time. All right, so what I'd like to do for you now is just, when I'm here cooking and putting these dishes together, I don't really think about weights and measures. I just I'm so used to doing this that it just feels right to me, and so I know what to do. But let me give you, as best I can, some measurements here of what I've got. I think I've got quite, let's see, a good 2 pints of sauce itself, 2 jars of the Bertolli olive oil and garlic sauce, and each of these is 24 ounces. Okay, so 48 ounces of the Bertolli sauce is base, but I've got much more than that in the pot, and I filled this frying pan to about here with the fresh tomatoes. I had a good ½ pound to 3/4 of a pound of fresh tomatoes right before I cut them up and remove the seeds and everything. So that's about as much fresh tomato as you want to use. I had this container filled with basil, fresh basil, and I mean filled like to overflowing almost. And as you can see, I used most of that, and it was very simple. I just broke it with my hands and put it in there and let it simmer along with the other ingredients too. So a container about this size. I'm not sure what this is. Maybe this is like a 1/4 pound if you were to measure the volume. So try to put that much in of fresh, and get fresh basil. The canned basil, dried basil just doesn't cut it. This container of garlic was full to the top before I began making the sauce. And as you can see, I used a good, 80% of that, maybe more. But my feeling on garlic is that you can never put too much in, but I think you do want to use a little bit of restraint. So the better part of a container this size goes in with the fresh tomatoes, the fresh garden tomatoes with the basil, and then that all goes into the 2 24-ounce jars of Bertolli or any other type of jar sauce you like, and that's the ingredients. That's the proportions of the ingredients that you want to use to make a good sauce, and we'll saute this so it thickens. We'll reduce it. Don't use any thickener. Don't use cornstarch or anything like that. It's not necessary. The only thing you might want to do is, if you taste the sauce, forgive me guys, but I won't put the spoon back in the sauce, I promise. It's got great flavor from the fresh tomatoes, and what I might often do is put in a pinch of baking soda, but this sauce doesn't need it. It's good to go. It often happens when you use too much canned tomatoes, and you don't get the seeds out. It's when the sauce is bitter, and you have to counteract that with a little bit of baking soda. But try and avoid that if you can. This sauce doesn't need it, so I'm very happy with the way everything came out here. Something to note when you're preparing eggplant to saute is that the eggplant itself is very absorbent, and so we're probably gonna go through this whole 16-ounce, 17-ounce bottle of extra virgin olive oil. I'll probably use most of this because every time I put a layer of eggplant into the pan, it soaks up just about all the olive oil I put in. And so I'm not, you got to be generous with it because you don't want these things sticking to the pan. And so I've got a nice layer of olive oil in there. It should be heating up once I turn the heat on. And here, that one. Okay, so that's heated up. It's already heated up pretty nicely. And I'm going to get 3 more of these eggplant slices going. And you can see that's what happens when you turn the heat off. right, in the middle of something, but the heat will come up soon enough and get those cooked. And so, give it just a second. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so you can see how much olive oil I put in there. And then by the time these are done, you know, on both sides, it'll have soaked up most of the olive oil in the pan. So, you know, you always have this nearby to keep refilling the frying pan. You got to refill it each time. Okay, so there we are. That'll take another 10 to 15 seconds. And it'll be ready by then to turn over, and I'll just put it in the pan, put another layer of mozzarella on, and we'll be ready to go. That's a little undercooked, but that's okay. And I'll just do more of the cooking on this other side. We want to be able to do to test these when they're really ready is put a fork through it, and it should be soft. It should let the fork sink in without too much pushing. So you want to get these eggplant slices, you know, pretty well cooked before you put them in the pan. Otherwise, they'll be a little tough when you, even when you bake them. So let those cook for a while, and they'll soon be ready to go. Yeah. Okay. Well, give it a little more time. So, this is a very traditional dish. You can do other things this style too. You can do chicken this way. You know, you can substitute other things if you don't mind, if you want to put the meat in there. You can do chicken this way. You can do pork chops, come up really nicely this style. If you have no qualms about veal, I know a lot of people do, but veal prepared this way is excellent. So, are you okay with veal there, you guys, chef? Is it veal? Yeah, a lot of people have a problem with veal because it's obvious it comes from a calf, from a baby cow, but I always kind of liked it. Anyway, all right, so we can turn that over. See, that's really perfect. Okay, that level of, see that color there, right there is perfect. That's how you want the eggplant to look as it's sautéed. And see, this one's getting much softer in the center to the touch of the fork. And so we'll do another minute or two there. And yeah, what do you think, cameraman? You like the way this is all going?
I was hungry 3 hours ago.
I know, and I've been torturing him by, with all these great smells. The sauce, as you can see, has reduced down very nicely. See, it started up here, and the level's now down to there, which is good because it's thickening very nicely, and that's what you want. You don't want a watery sauce. That's like not good. Okay, but this has thickened really nice, and you like I said before, you might want to pull out this tomato skin, but it doesn't affect the taste one way or another. And I'm just going to leave them in because some people are hungry and I don't want to delay serving this any more than I have to. So these are ready to put in the pan, and I'm going to do that. I think we can get one more layer in there. Yeah. And after 20 minutes in the oven at about 425, I think. Yeah, 425. These will be good. And preheat the oven. Make sure you preheat the oven. Some more sauce. Oh, wait, mozzarella cheese. Okay, and so you can just do this by hand. You can see how this is kind of stringy, but it's okay. You can just pull it off with your hands and give a little to each slice of eggplant, and move it around the pan too. Just put the excess in someplace else. More sauce. I'm going to keep doing that, and you'll have a really nice meal by the time you're done with all this. So that's about it. Okay, That's it, and we're ready. We're ready to go. We're ready to put this in the oven. All right, so here we are. Finally, at the end, we finished this, and it spent a total of 30 minutes in the oven. Okay, so as I said before, what you want to do is get a fork and test it. The way you can tell it's ready is that, see, the fork just goes right into the eggplant. It's perfect. It's ready to go. The Parmesan on top, grated Parmesan, put it, you know, kind of browned into a nice crust. And so everything, this is ready. This is ready for us to eat. So let's enjoy, and you all too, if you had a chance to cook it yourself. And yeah, and it was a form of meditation, is what it was. Just concentrating on plucking out all the little pieces of grass and weeds between the flagstones and the pavement, basically. And it didn't matter even if they didn't care if you got it done or not. They just wanted to have you get down on your knees and with bare hands or maybe a little kitchen knife dig up these you know, these small little green things, weeds and whatever, and clean out the spaces between the bricks that made up the paved walkway there. And so that definitely taught us patience.